Hi there. Later, chimpanzees are really gay. First though, police have made a butch lesbian leave a women's bathroom because they were adamant she's a man. Claire Morton was answering the call of nature in a Walmart store in Tucson, Arizona. The two officers were both male, but apparently that's fine. Even when the 19-year-old lifted her top up, they still wouldn't accept she's a woman.
I was using the restroom. Next thing I see, a flashlight. I hear, who's in there? Who's in there? So I'm like, sir, I'm a girl. What's going on? What are we doing? What are we talking about here? You're in the wrong bathroom, not me.
The local sheriff's department's investigating. Kalea says she's going to sue. A man accused of using Grindr to steal his hookup's credit card info and defraud them has been arrested. Australia's 7 News says he'd meet victims for sex in Sydney, Melbourne and Adelaide and find their card details while they were showering. Police believe this was going on for years, with claims $1 million could have been stolen. He's been charged with fraud and identity crimes. And I don't know quite how gay you reckon chimpanzees are, but it turns out they're more homosexual than we thought. And I've given this a lot of thought. Researchers from Durham University have found male chimps are managing and resolving social tensions by having gay sex. They've been observing primates in Africa at feeding time, when conflict's most likely, and the boys were more likely to get with other boys as a way of sorting things out. No time to tell you that. 2 out gay black men are co-hosting a news program on a major US network for the first time, on MSNBC. And gay country music star Orville Peck's teamed up with children's supergroup The Wiggles for a new track. It's called Friends of Dorothy. Hi there. Later, the trans influencer revealing all. First though, America's Supreme Court might re-legalise conversion therapy. It's agreed to hear a legal challenge brought by a therapist who's a Christian, would you believe? Kaylee Charles says a ban in Colorado on inhumane and pointless attempts to unqueer queer people restricts her ability to do her job.
Many of my clients choose to work with me because we share a similar perspective on faith and values. However, I'm facing a serious challenge. Colorado's counseling censorship law threatens my ability to engage in private, professional conversations with my clients.
Thanks to Fox 31 Denver, maybe try a new faith and some new values. The Trevor Project, a suicide prevention organisation for queer youth, says conversion therapy more than doubles the risk of them taking their own lives. But yeah, faith and values. A church described as disturbingly homophobic plans to open another venue for its bigotry in the UK. The Redeemed Christian Church of God is led by Pastor Enoch Adeboye, who says homosexuality is evil and gay marriage could wipe out the human race. Ooh, she's a bit dramatic. They're going to take over a disused cinema in Stafford in central England. The town's Pride organisation says it's horrified. And transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney's telling all about her first year of transition. The 28-year-old's new book, Paper Doll, Notes from a Late Bloomer, is out today. Amongst other things, she talks about the transphobic backlash to a sponsorship deal with Bud Light Beer and the first time she was kissed as a girl. Hi there. Later, a lesbian garage. First though, a state funeral's been held in Australia for HIV activist David Paulson. The 70-year-old who died last month was one of the first people to be diagnosed there in 1984. He dedicated his life to educating people on HIV and took part in 28 drug trials. Friend Peter Campbell spoke at the service, says David remained partial to a drink even in his final days in care.
He enjoyed a few G&Ts and Veuve Clicquot, usually just on a mouth sponge. But only the day before he died, at about 6 a.m, when a nurse was looking after him, he asked her very clearly for a gin and tonic in a glass.
Those drug trials left David with some awful long-term side effects, but ultimately led to PrEP, a medication that stops HIV. A transgender woman's been sentenced to 3 years jail in Indonesia for saying Jesus should get his hair cut. TikTok influencer Ratu Talisa was reacting to a comment during a live stream telling her to cut her own hair to look more like a man. She's got nearly 3 years inside for hate speech against religion, plus a fine. Amnesty International says the punishment is shocking. And the story of a garage opened by 3 lesbians in the 1980s has been turned into a film. Ros Woolen, Annette Williams and Ros Wall set up Gwenda's Garage in Sheffield, offered all the usual services but also focused on empowering women with the likes of car maintenance classes and advice on buying second-hand motors. Ros Woolen tells Historic England they've been struggling to find employment in a male-dominated, misogynistic industry.
We had to set up because we couldn't get work as women. There wasn't the climate for women to be taken on. We were older women, we were in our 30s. There was always an excuse as to why they couldn't employ a woman.
There's a screening for the film in Sheffield later. The garage was named after racing driver Gwenda Stewart, another trailblazer in a male-dominated field. Hi there. Later, Ukraine's Queens of Joy. First though, a move to alter Hungary's constitution so pride marches are banned. The country's far-right bigoted governing party submitted proposals for amendments. They emphasise the protection of children, over all other rights, so pride would have to be banned to keep those kiddywinks safe. Artist Gideon Horvad lives in Budapest and sometimes suffers verbal abuse because he's queer.
I am not angry at anyone, to be honest, who calls me names, who attacks me on the street, because I don't see like it's their direct fault that they are doing that. I'm angry at people in powerful positions who facilitate this hate speech.
Thanks to Euronews. Culture war cretins also want to amend the constitution so it only recognises 2 sexes, male and female. An art exhibition with suggestive portraits of queer Christian priests and nuns has been forced to close early in Mexico City. There have been a number of protests against the work of Fabian Cherez, which includes a painting of 2 clergymen licking a massive candle. A judge has shut it down after a complaint from Christians and Catholics ruling it violated constitutional religious rights. And Ukraine's national public broadcaster has shown an LGBTQ+ film for the very first time. It's a documentary they've co-produced called Queens of Joy, following 3 Ukrainian drag queens who remain in their homeland despite the Russian invasion. We see how they've chosen to stay and fight for freedom, the LGBTQ+ community, and for their very existence. Hi there. Later, Viagra versus gender-affirming care. First though, London's been seeing 3 chemsex-related deaths a month. An investigation for ITV News finds that's the stat for 2023, with police saying things could be even worse now. Chemsex is the use of drugs by men who sleep with other men to enhance sex, the likes of crystal meth and GHB. Tahir, not his real name, died after getting addicted. The 27-year-old's father says following chemsex, his son's body lay undiscovered for 17 hours.
To spend his last hours with no one around him to care for him, just left on the floor in a blanket, a lonely, desolate way to go.
And one of the UK's biggest hospitals says for about a third of people it sees over drug-related issues, chemsex drugs are involved. What's thought to have been the world's only prison exclusively for LGBTQ+ people in Australia has got some formal recognition for its place in queer history. Cooma Jail in New South Wales housed men convicted over their sexuality and gender identity between 1957 and 1984, when homosexuality was legalised there. The site's now part of the State Heritage Register, acknowledging the inmates' unjust imprisonment and the resilience of queer people. And the US military spends 8 times more on Viagra for service members than on gender-affirming care. Come again? This is what we've heard during a court hearing over America's ban on transgender people serving. The Defence Department funds the erectile dysfunction medication to the tune of $42 million a year. Hard to believe. Medical care for gender dysphoria gets $5.2 million. No time to tell you that. Boston in America has declared itself a sanctuary city for transgender people. And Transstock, an all-trans and non-binary music and poetry festival, is happening in Newcastle in England tomorrow. Why haven't you told your friends about Pride Daily? Do you want me to beg? I'm Kev McGrath. See you next week.